Bonnie Silvestri, and I got the privilege to teach all of these wonderful students up here who are now out in the community and working after having taken a service learning course with me. And many of them have felt that the service, oh wait, hi, able to walk in, but we believe really strongly that service learning is the key to 21st century education. It's one of the most exciting and dynamic ways of delivering information and getting students to be excited about their own community. So that's why we thought this would be a great fit for the Neighborhoods Conference, to be able to talk about ways in which you can partner with the universities that you have in your local areas to develop evidence-based information, to have students providing service. There's all kinds of really fantastic ways that you can partner, and we'll be able to answer any kinds of questions of sample projects that students have worked on and how they've been very effective in their communities. And then it also has this wonderful benefit of having students feel connected and wanting to stay local, which I know is a really big issue in Florida. So I'm going to show you just a very brief PowerPoint, and then we're going to open it up to a discussion. But basically, service learning is a high-impact practice which leads to retention, jobs, and community and social engagement. I heard someone say they were already familiar with service learning. How many people? Yes, okay. It's much more common now in colleges to employ service learning, and it really should be everywhere. So there's a term, critical service learning, which focuses on a collaborative, community-based approach. In the old days, service learning was more of a situation where a faculty member would really need to do some research, so they would go and kind of perform research on a community and then leave with their data and not come back and not really give any information about what they derived from those experiences. So critical service learning has students taking a more critical approach to the organizations that they're part of, and also working more collaboratively with those organizations. And it really has been much more effective in that way. So these are some pictures of some of the students up here and others. And what was really, you can't see it very well, but he's the former mayor of the city of Sarasota, and he was the mayor when he came to the class because he really wanted to hear what the students were saying about the research that they had done. And this is also a former mayor who was the head of Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness. And he worked very closely with us, was a guest speaker, and Patrick volunteered at his organization. Another really key part to service learning that I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about is the reflective practice. Reflective practice requires self-evaluation and some soul-searching because you make a lot of discoveries about yourself, about your community during the course of a semester, which everyone will be able to share with you, the kinds of things that they discovered and the things that I discovered that I didn't know about myself or about my community. So, oh, there's Markella's in this picture. Service learning is an inner reflection of my soul being actualized through community service. That's a quote from one of the students, which I absolutely loved. By the end of the semester, and a lot of people are thinking, oh, I really don't want to do this service, but by the end, almost everyone is really excited about it. And this is another quote that I thought was really helpful. Service learning has been so inspiring and reignited the spark in me to get back into serving and helping my community, but at a different level, a much higher and more inspired level. I no longer feel as though I cannot help. Without service learning, I wouldn't be back in my community helping people. It ties into a passion I have. I feel like I am home again. So I think that by providing service locally, you really get the opportunity to meet your neighbors, feel like you can try to resolve a community problem, and when you're in college and aren't necessarily connected to the community, you may have moved here to go to that school, it gives you that opportunity. And then, this is my last slide. Powerful transformational impact. Service learning can be life-changing. So we're gonna hear some of those kinds of stories, and I'll share some others as well. But this was a really great project where students were able to help in a place called Resurrection House. And the art project that was going on at the time was extremely inspiring, and it was really exciting. And there's a whole group of community members working on a mandala that was hanging at USF Sarasota Manatee, and I don't know where it is right now, but I'm tracking it down because I went and I said, "Where's the mandala?" we were able to purchase it at the end of that summer. So I think that was my last slide. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of give you a background on service learning. I've been teaching in that pedagogy for close to 6 years, and Markella was in my very first class, which was called Ending Homelessness, How Can We Work Towards Social Change? And I'll let each of them introduce themselves, but I actually got to see her more recently because she's been a master's student at the USF main campus where I've been working previously. And I have to say, my first day in Sarasota County government is Monday, so I'm going to be changing jobs and working for Sarasota County government, so it's a great way to get to meet all of you. So this is Markella Cepeda, and she's going to talk about the work that she did during her summer. And Shauna Machado, wonderful, amazing student who's done so much in the community. And she invited me to join the Suncoast Partnership to End Homelessness board, and now is the chair. So it's been really exciting because we all got exposed to that organization through the summers, volunteering there, and now she's the chair of that board, so it's very exciting. And then Patrick Walker did wonderful work with Suncoast Partnership and volunteered with veterans and is a veteran himself. So having the opportunity to draw upon your own personal experience, and I often really like students, if they have children, to volunteer at their own children's school. There's all kinds of places that you can volunteer, and I like it to be as open to your passions as you can be. So I'm going to let everybody kind of open up the discussion and talk about the kinds of work that they did during their summers. Markella.
Thank you. So I had the privilege of being a part of Professor Silvestri's 2010, her first service learning class. And so like she had mentioned, one day a week we went to class, and one day a week we would go to Resurrection House. So this was a homeless shelter that provided a variety of resources for those clients that accessed their services. So they would have like laundry area where they could come in and the staff would help them wash, dry, and fold their clothes. They had a shower area, so they would come in and check in with staff and be able to get the necessities to shower and feel clean and shave. There would be an area for food, as well as to take with them so they could eat at the time and then be able to have something for after the shelter would close. I think it was like 4 or 5, so they were kind of on their own after that. And then there was counseling services that we would sit on, and then more the administrative side. So all of us would rotate throughout these different services so that we would be able to get a feel for how this center functioned as a whole. One of the things that I noticed during that class was that you had mentioned this soul searching, and so I think it's really important because it has trickled in every facet, from this class to my professional career and my time in academia. And so in that, I noticed that parts of my soul were kind of ticking, and I could start to feel like things were important, and I was noticing things and I wasn't understanding like why it was mattering so much. So it was like a process. So every week we would start on a Tuesday, I believe, and then on a Thursday we would come in and kind of express what we were going through journal articles and class discussions about our experiences that week or as a whole. And so in that, I realized that there was this bookcase, and some of the members, as they would come in and talk about their time at the shelter, would say, you know, we have a lot of books and we'd like to talk about them, we just don't really know like what to begin or how to get more books. And so a classmate of mine who also attended that year, Brooke, she was really invested in community gardens, and so she had background in that, and I was an English lit major, and so in that we decided to combine our forces and look at a transitional living facility for women so that they could have their children there as well. And so we went to this location, Harvest House. Professor Silvestri was able to connect us with this organization through her connections. And so we sat with them and we started to hash out ideas about how we could create a kind of food for thought type project is what we were looking at, and how we could help these clients at this transitional living facility create their own gardens so that they could give their children nutritious foods, teach them how to be self-sufficient, how to come together as a community. We had seen this documentary about Orange County homeless children and what they were eating in their schools, and that they were giving them Pop-Tarts and sodas and Cheetos, and this was considered school-provided lunches for these children, and oftentimes they would go home hungry. And so in that, we thought that we would combine this nutritional community type of perspective and combine it with this mysterious bookshelf that intrigued me so much. I know that I learned history, I learned art, I learned about the humanities through literature, and that was something that I really felt passionate about. And I felt like if you can take that to a child, or you can take that to their parent, you can bring that into their homes, you can bring that into their communities, you start to foster not just literacy, but teamwork, you start to foster ideas, creativity, imagination, and then the sky's the limit. Dr. Atwater, he is the president of the community college where I work, spoke yesterday, and he had mentioned to the USF, I was at a STEM summit, he mentioned, you know, when I walk into a classroom of elementary school kids and I ask them, how many of you want to go to college, they all raise their hands. And by the time that he asked that same question to middle schoolers, half of the students aren't raising their hands. And so it really starts to connect. You start to see what feeds your soul. And so it reminded me of that. And you know, you really want to foster these children's passion. And so it didn't end up taking off. There are many constraints when you work with any kind of organization, whether it's religious or government affiliated. They have their own rules and regulations, so a lot of things kind of interfered with volunteers who were able or not able to participate and that sort of thing. But it wasn't a failure, because it taught me what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in the community, and I wanted to give back in a way that fostered that same kind of passion to the people that I interacted with. So I left USF when I graduated in 2011, and I was fortunate enough to start working for a Hispanic Serving Institution grant, a Title III grant that was awarded by the Federal Department of Education to Hillsborough Community College. And so in that, I started really tapping into my background as being Panamanian and Nicaraguan. And what does this mean? Because oftentimes minoritized groups are put into the same category, right? You hear black and brown often as that phrase, it's a catch-all. But what we forget is that these populations, although we should be focusing as a whole, we also need to be looking at individually what these communities need. And so, because each community is different, and you can have multiple communities of what we would call the same, Hispanic or Latino, but they have different needs depending on where you go. And so I started to evaluate what are the needs of Latinos, just as an inquiry that I was having as just being part of this grant. Why was it so important to give back to Latino communities through a federal grant, through a community college? And so I started investigating and realized that I really had a passion to understand what it meant to be a Latino leaving prison and coming back into the community, particularly in Hillsborough County. And so that fostered a passion for me to apply to the master's program at USF for Latin America and Caribbean Studies. And so I am in, hopefully I will defend next term and get that underway. But what I've been doing through that work is going out into the community through organizations like the Hispanic Services Council and talking to Hispanic communities in Waimama and Plant City, in North Tampa, about what it means to be arrested. What does it mean to go to prison? What does it mean to then reintegrate? And what services are available to communities as a whole in order to reintegrate successfully? And why do Latinos have such a high recidivism rate? 1 in 6 will go to prison, and 76% of Latinos who leave prison will recidivate within 5 years. And so those are alarming statistics, and they're very similar to what is said about other minoritized populations. And so I thought, well, these similarities are happening for a reason. And so I started to look at those communities by going out and talking to them, and then speaking with different organizations that offered reentry services. And so that investigation, although part of academia in my master's program, really almost supported what I already was feeling through this service learning class years before, that you have to be in the community to understand the community. You have to be working with its members, you have to be listening to each other's needs and listening to what the challenges are, listening to what the strengths are so you can scale them up. And so in that, I've been lucky enough over the course of the last 4 years of being in Tampa to have now be over a transfer center. And so one of the things that I'm noticing is it doesn't matter what position I start to go into, there's always the opportunity to reach back into the community. So one of the fortunate parts of me being part of Hillsborough Community College and moving on from the grant into my new position in the STEM Transfer Center is that a focus is to go out into the communities. We're still a Hispanic serving institution. We still want to tap into what our communities need, especially in that Tampa Bay, Ybor area. And so one of my primary responsibilities is to go out, inform the community that I'm there to help their children find out what it means to go to a community college, find out what it means to get their AA, and find out what that means in transition to a university. So even in my position now, service learning is a continual process, whether I'm getting a course credit for it or I'm getting a life credit for it. And so one of the questions that I think is just really important, you had said, soul searching. And so as you were saying that, I was kind of taking a note because it's funny, I met with, as SGA executive officers, these students that run the SGA at my campus. And I said, so the center is newly part of the institution. I want to ask you what you want from your center. And so one of the things this girl was saying is she wants to do this, but she doesn't know in the time. And I said, well, what feeds your soul? Because when you find what feeds your soul, then you start to see that you want to give that to somebody else. And so it trickles in every part of life, whether you're going to school and taking a service learning class, or whether you're in a professional career and you can still be able to take that skill set and translate it into something greater than just yourself. So.
Love that. It was so great. I actually haven't gotten to see them recently because we've all been working and doing our own thing. So it's so great to come back and revisit how much everyone seems to have really gotten out of the service learning experience. And even when everything isn't perfect, like you mentioned, there were some holdups with getting things started. And that's part of what critical service learning is about, taking a critical look at an organization and trying to figure out ways to make it better. So I think that that's really key and why it's great to have an academic perspective coming into an organization. So now I'm going to turn it over to Shauna.
I think my experience with service learning was very personal, probably because of what I was going through at the time. So I started my USF in January 2010. And I knew that I needed to get out of the situation that I was in financially. So that's why I started college. Never thinking I'm going to go in and find myself, which I did. So I started and I said, okay, I've got to get a bachelor's degree. I've got to be able to survive in this community. And my personal situation at the time was that I was homeless. So when I saw the opportunity to take this class, I thought, okay, that's right up my alley. I can fit in. I can feel comfortable. So I decided to take the class, not realizing that I was going to find myself in the class. So nobody knew about my situation, so I thought I can just kind of fit in, I can find all these agencies, I can find help, or I can find where I need to do work. And one of the things, the very first thing I figured out was that in order to make myself feel better, I could volunteer. And I knew that through this class and doing my volunteering that I was feeling better. I was feeling like I wasn't part of the statistics. I was feeling like I could do something that got me out of where I was in, even though I was still in there physically. So not only did I volunteer in the agency that we were assigned to, I also started to volunteer in other agencies in the community, and so I was able to get through my situation very easily, actually. So I ended up spending about 2 years being homeless while I was in school. And the one thing that got me through was that volunteering. I got connected to the mayor at the time, came and visited our class, and at that time the Suncoast Partnership was developing a plan to end homelessness, the 10-year plan to end homelessness. So I thought, great, I can go in there, I can give my personal perspective, and I can give my academic perspective, and all of this volunteering that I was doing for the service learning, I can give that perspective. And I ended up creating a program that I could present to the mayor and some other community officials, and they were part of the Suncoast Partnership. So I did that, and I graduated, and I knew that I needed to get a job where I could definitely support myself, because I didn't want to get laid off again. I didn't want to be in that position again, so I researched and researched, and I ended up becoming a foster care case manager. And now I help children that are, how I would say, as orphans, because they're in the foster care system without parents because they're waiting for adoption. So in a way, I'm still helping those that need homes, but in a little bit of a different aspect. But it wasn't enough for me just working. So I decided to continue my volunteering while I was working, and I was asked to join the board of the Suncoast Partnership, and I've been on the board since 2012 when I graduated. And it has been wonderful to be on that board, to see the other aspect of it, because going through my situation, I saw all the issues. I saw where I needed to help and what I couldn't do because I didn't have the finances, I didn't have the education, I didn't have the connections. But being on that board, I was able to see what needed to be done and what was completely absurd to think that it could be done. And I could see where there were federal issues, state issues, and then local issues. Before I graduated and I was going through the service learning, I thought I need to find out how I was going to support myself when I graduated, like I was saying, and I decided I'm going to apply for a scholarship. Apply for a scholarship to get out of the country. I could have my room and board paid for, and I could go to school, and it was perfect. And I actually won the scholarship, but I wasn't able to go away because I was ineligible due to my age. But I learned so much that going away isn't going to give me what I needed. What I needed was right here in my local community. I was a part of it. I became a part of it just through volunteering. I became a part of it because of the connections that came into our classroom. I was able to do so many wonderful things through my volunteering and touch so many local people that I still see, that I still am in touch with. I see their advancements, I see their growth, and that's such a rewarding feeling that my 2 years of homelessness makes me feel good because I was able to give that back to the community. And I never would have had that had this opportunity not come up. And I think as college students, we go in and we're like, yeah, we're going to save the world. We're going to, go out to this great big world and go to another country, and we're going to save them. And I realized that it takes all of us as a community to make things good, and I needed to be a part of the community, and that was my biggest thing that I learned in that.
And you were interviewed, and a student came to me wanting to be an intern with my office, and he said he was inspired by you because he was currently homeless in college, and it made him know that he could keep going. And I see him wandering around campus, and I'm so happy to see. So it was great that you were able to share that experience so that people could see that you were able to, everyone knows you, you're involved in everything, Commission on the Status of Women. They said, someone said right at the end, I wish I could make 12 of Shauna, the person that you volunteered with. So it was really, really just great to hear your story and hear how it's impacting you still.
And it's so rewarding just to get that back from the community.
Yeah.
I kind of think if I would have gone away, how lost I would have been. Because the community was my home, and everybody was my family. So.
Okay, Patrick.
Hello. Me and Sean, I was actually students together in the same class. My story is pretty much like the rest of these guys. It became personal. I had an interest. I had just got out of the military for over 20 years, and I was somewhat lost. I didn't, I was living, but I was lost because for 20 years plus years, they told me what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. So that was okay. Then I had to come into the real world, and that was really a challenge for me. And I lived in Virginia Beach, so I said, I have to move. I don't have my daughter and my grandkids, so I said, I got to go. So I moved to Venice, of all places. Venice happened to be the place to move to. I don't know why, but I always had a fascination about homelessness, always. And like she shared earlier, it tugged at my soul whether to give or whether not to give. Because I was always, my family always said give, but as you get a little wiser, they're going to use that for something else. I'm not giving. So I was kind of battling personally myself about homelessness. And when I saw Professor Greenball at the time.
Yeah. And everyone can call me Bonnie. I mean,
when I saw Bonnie had a course but in homelessness, I said, you know what? It was a good way for me to find out about me. So when I took the class, had no clue about it, because when I learned about homelessness when I grew up, the only thing I knew about, we had hobos. So that was it. You know, parents say, that hobo across the track is going to get you. So, you know, we stayed away from the track. But that was my only impression because I was in the military, so I was away from a lot of that. You know, I was culturally in another group of people. And that wasn't exposed in that environment. And so for me, I was inundated to it. I had no clue about it. I only saw it on TV or passed by it. So when I enrolled in the class, Bonnie told us that we had to choose an organization. And so we always picked in, and I got lucky to work with Shauna at Suncoast Partnership in homelessness, which I thought was really great because you have to find avenues for people who fell on hard times, whether they did it purposely or it happened to them. So my job when I got to Suncoast Partnership was a little challenging because I had to go into the Resurrection House. How many of you guys know the Resurrection House? I had to go to the Resurrection House. And having grown up in the projects as a youngster and then when I left away, I thought I had some street skills. And when I walked into the Resurrection House, that place intimidated me so much that when I went in, I didn't speak to anyone. I kept looking forward. I found a corner, and I got around a chair, got me some coffee, and I put my back against the wall. And I said, you know what? If you go down, I can see you coming at me. That's how intimidating it was for me when I first walked into the Resurrection House. And I said, I don't want to do this. You know, I'm going to go back to St. Louis Partnership, find me another easy way I can find out about homelessness. They said, no, this is what we want you to do, collect data. So the first time I went in, but as I started going back, I started feeling not comfortable because that wasn't a comfortable environment, but I started feeling good about going in and meeting and greeting people. And I never forget this one kid that I was actually sitting down. He said, can I sit? I said, sure. So he was sitting down, and the first thing I noticed about it was his shoes. He must have had like a $400 pair of shoes on. So I said to him, he was 17 years old, never forget that kid. I said, what's going on? He said, my father kicked me out of the house. I said, he said, like, he calls it tough love. I said, okay. I said, yeah, that could be that way. I said, how you make it? He said, well, we sleep on the street at night, we band together, and we keep each other safe. I said, okay. I said, well, your family live local? Well, he said, my father's actually a banker in Siesta Keys. We are well off. My mother owns a horse farm in Ocala. So, okay. I said, those things do happen. So we went on and we started just conversate about life and everything. And I said, and I walked down and said, wow. Here this young man has the resources, but he's still sitting here. You know, why he's sitting here? And he explained to me the reason why he was sitting there, because he didn't have any documentation. He had no ID, he had no driver's license. He didn't have any skills how to go out and make it because people have been providing for him. Now he's on his own. And I'm like, wow. So he was with a group of people that all was together about the same age group. And I got to know them real well. And the way they would travel in packs to protect each other at night. So as I continue on meeting people, I met some wonderful people. And like the young lady said earlier, my soul started getting fed. And when your soul is getting fed, it is the best feeling in the world. It tells you what you should do in life. They call it passion, but I like the analogy. I'm going to use that. When your soul is being fed. So I went on, and so they wanted me to start doing the street walking, meeting people on the street, So I felt a little comfortable talking and engaging. And if they know you care, you didn't get around it. Oh, you that guy that bought some shirts. Oh, you that guy that bought some drinks. You know, yeah, I'm that guy. How you doing today? All right. I'm a little hungry. I said, okay, I'll get you next time I come. I try not to give money. I said, well, next time I come around, I have something for you. So after I started going out in the streets, I met this guy. He was a veteran. I'll never forget. His name was Willie. Him and his girlfriend slept on the street constantly. And what ate away at me while I was getting their dad at the same time was he had the opportunity to get the benefits to come off the street and get into a place. But he refused it. And I was like, and we used to talk just casual. Man, you crazy. What are you doing? Get your woman off the street. Get her off the street. You can stay on the street. And he was like, no. She was like, we're okay. We're okay. We're okay. One day, I never forget, it was at Shelby Library. And I learned two things from this guy that really has transcended the pendulum swing in my life. We're at Shelby Library. Now, you know you can only get 2 hours parking. There was this car, pretty beat up. You wonder how it made it to the library. So the family comes out. By this time, the car has a ticket. So the mother comes out, the African American, they come out, the little girl and the mother. And the mother sees the ticket, and she goes ballistic. And the first thing he says to me, you know that ticket only $15, but it's going to affect that household? I'm like, wow, yes. Because eventually she's not going to pay it, and the fine's going to creep up. So next time she gets stopped, she's going to get arrested for a $15 ticket. But you know who loses most? That little girl, because the mother probably not going to bring her back to the library of that bad experience. So we still dialoguing, and we're talking about sports, and I make a general statement, man, what do you know? You homeless, right? That I got that comfortable with him, and he felt comfortable with me. He said, let me educate you. He said, I'm not homeless. I'm in transition just like you. We live in different boxes. Yeah, you did. And we all live in different boxes. Because if you take a floor plan and cut the roof off, you know what it is? It's a maze. That's all it really is. You're going in and out. Take the roof off, you got a maze. So what he said to me, we live in different boxes. That's what we are. We all live in different boxes. And from that moment on, I knew that life was changing for me, and I had to change. So I continued working service learning, and we graduated. And I still didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a social worker. But the program at USF at the time, they needed some, I guess they needed some setups to where they could continue the program, and they didn't get it. So they canceled the program and they moved it to Tampa, so you had to drive in Tampa. So I said, well, I'm not gonna drive in Tampa, I live in Venice, I was attending USF Manatee. So I love history. I believe history is like the greatest thing that we all can educate ourselves on. If you don't learn from it, you're gonna repeat it. And so I went in and I got my interdictionary social science degree. Interdisciplinary social science. Yeah, interdisciplinary social science. Thank you. And I still didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. You know. So one day, someone said, "Hey, we're looking for volunteers with Big Brother, Big Sister." Just out of casual talking. So I said, well, I got time. I got things to do. You know, I'm trying to get this degree. You know, I want to go to work. And so I decided to go. And I've been a Big Brother since 2009. Still a Big Brother today. And wonderful opportunity to volunteer. So I started doing that, and I said, you know what? I'm good with people. I'm good with people. So I started substituting as a teacher. You know, I started substituting. So I got my undergrad degree. I said, well, you know what? Let me keep pushing on. So I went ahead to school, back to school. I got my master's in Master of Art in Teaching in ESC. So I said I wanted to be able to have that skill set they use for these kids, but use them with our gen ed. Because our gen ed kids are the same. We separate people by labels because we can control them better. But all kids need some form of structure. And the way they teach gen ed education, they assume the child knows already. No, they don't. They're children. You know, they're children. Somebody taught us. Somebody taught us the rules. And so what's missing today in that environment are parents that we had. Not to take anything away from parents today, because they have a lot on their plate. But we had certified a community. So if you did something wrong down the street, by the time you got home, you got whipped all the way home. You know, and then you didn't need a cell phone or the internet. But your parents knew that something wasn't right. And they didn't go down the street and want to fight the neighbors. They thanked the neighbors. Thank you for keeping an eye on my child. We lost that in the community. So I have been fortunate enough to land at a school called Electric Lee Middle School in Bradenton. About 2 years ago, they had a program nationwide that only 2 states was using it. Illinois and California, and it's called the Graduate Enhancement Technician, and it works directly with the social worker. And what they wanted to discover was that, is there a correlation between attendance, academic, and behavior? Yes, there is. If your child not coming to school, they're not learning. And when they come to school, they fall behind, their behavior kicks up. So the simple reason for a teacher is get them out of the classroom. But they gotta learn. Somebody has to teach them. So the service learning connection, bringing it back to the service learning connection, what I learned from that homeless experience, that young man or the gentleman, was that we all live in different paradigms. And in order to understand how other people move, sometimes you have to invade so you can get a real snapshot. We all see things from our peripheral, from outside of the cultures, and we come up with our own formula. Oh, that culture's this way, that culture's that. But when you get in, you realize it's not like that. And what I learned just recently was about 2 years ago, right behind CVS up here on 41 in Jacaranda, there was a homeless community back there. They call it Tent City. And the minister took me out there, we went out there, and he said, you're gonna meet a lot of people. Don't be afraid. I said, good. And we get back there, and the land of it is, the great thing, the land is private property. So the owner has given them the rights to live there. So that police can't come in and move them. The owner has given them the right. And they got a makeshift house. I don't know if it's still there. They got picture frames on the wall. They have a makeshift wall. They got picture frames. They got furniture and everything. And the pastor says to him, he said, we just want to make sure there's no legal things going on, no drinking. And the guy said, you know what? We have our rules. We have our rules. Every society, subculture has rules. There's a hierarchy in every subculture. And when he said that to me, I'm like, wow, even people who we consider outside the norm, yes?
Does that mean we only have 10 minutes left for the whole thing?
Okay.
We definitely want to
Yes,
take your
okay,
question.
sure, all right.
So-
But I'll wrap it up and say, the thing that it gave me was the 3 E's. It educated me, it exposed me, because I thought I knew, and it gave me empathy. Because now that when I see a homeless person, I don't judge them on the merit of how they got there. I'm more service towards a woman and a child. If I see a woman and a child, I have a tendency to help. If I see a grown man and somebody that's capable, I'm still like, I think you can make it work if you do some things, But if I'm able to help, I'm going to help. But it did change me for the better. And like she said, it still feeds my soul because I still volunteer every chance I get.
Okay, so now everyone's going to share what their experiences are. So we want to open it up to you. Sorry, there's only 10 minutes left. Maybe there's projects going on in the neighborhoods where you're working or in your communities where you can get in touch with the local universities and find out if there's service learning opportunities. Because basically what I did was this course, I actually changed it a little bit because I realized that it shouldn't just be called Ending Homelessness. I wanted to focus on poverty more generally. So now students can volunteer in a variety of different organizations. So what we want to do is just to make sure that all of you are aware when you go back to your community that there's probably a university that is looking for a project to work on. So if your organization, someone in your neighborhood wants to have something done, like building an organic garden where it can be for the community, those could be service learning projects. So I thought the purpose of this would be to kind of make you aware of the fact that not only does service learning really do wonderful things for the individual students and really help support people to stay within their own community, but also there's a lot of great projects that you could get in touch with your university, and there's probably somebody organizing service learning on those campuses, and that's the office that I was previously working in. We helped find projects that the faculty could work on, such as community gardens. It could be going and surveying different homes and making sure that they're up to code for emergencies. So there's people in public health that are working on those. So there's all kinds of different things. So if you have different kinds of projects, I might be able to answer some questions, or you might have questions for our panel. Does anyone have any? Yes.
7. How many minutes do we have? How many minutes do we have?
7.
That's about it, right? I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to call you.
Maybe just one. Oh, yeah. Do you have one question?
You say get in contact with the colleges, and we do, but they're not responding the way you're making it like it's so easy
Yeah.
to go in and speak to these people to get their students to volunteer. And we've done it on several occasions, and we're not hitting the right department.
Yeah.
I'll give you my card.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Come see me.
And then on the other hand, we have other partners that know how to reach them, so it's not like we haven't really dug in there, but because our vision is so big, what we do in our neighborhood association, which is in Westgate, Lakeland, Florida. My goal is to reach these college students because I know that they're willing, but how do we reach them? You can't just walk into the college store, I get your card, and we'll take it from there.
We'll chat.
Okay. Who, somebody, oh
I
yes.
had a similar question
Well,
because.
I can give an answer. Also, on each college, they have a student committee. Contact the student committees.
SGA.
SGA, yes, the
That's the
SGA.
universal term, SGA, Student
SGA.
Government Association.
Yes, and they are willing to come out and do wonderful things. I have worked with them this year, myself personally. They do like Christmas gifts for the kids. They do mentorship. They do it all. So SGAs at any university, you should be able to be good to go.
Some high schools do that too.
Yes, high school too has to do volunteer hours, so you can get high school students too.
Yes.
But the fraternities and high school students also another option.
Okay, let's go to,
No, I had a similar question because,
Oh, okay.
like this lady too, we have a university right near us, and you feel like the university is so far away.
yeah.
So I was just thinking creatively, who I knew on campus that I could get to. Because they have a student person over students,
Government,
not student government, but the student affairs.
certainly student affairs.
But even though they couldn't get any volunteers.
Really?
So,
That's
Okay, so
what
my
I-
mission is strong, because we gotta get this word out.
Yeah.
that-
Yeah, we're reaching out.
I mean, it was neat
Yeah.
to hear how, and very engaging to hear what occurred at USF. But to get it to work somewhere else,
Yeah.
how do you get the
Oh, that's such a
university
good question.
that's
Well, this
right
is
down
where
the
it
street
starts.
from a poor neighborhood
Right.
to work with that neighborhood?
Right, well, this is where it starts. Oftentimes, is that dialogue, is to start talking about it. So that's great. We can start to put you in contact with those organizations, for sure. Get my card, we'll talk as well.
Don't forget, high school students need volunteer hours too, so you can touch base with your high school and get these kids out there. They'd be more than happy to come on out there.
And the exciting thing though, if you were able, hopefully we can find you a faculty, because there's an organization called Florida Campus Compact, and it's also a national organization, which is called Campus Compact for the Nation. And university presidents have signed on that their students will be civically engaged and will be involved in service learning. So Florida Campus Compact has a list of the universities that are a part of it, and most universities are. So I may be able to find you, because I know a lot of the people from the different universities from going to the conferences. So I know that there are people in a variety of different places, community colleges and universities, who do service learning classes. And if you can find a faculty member, I think that's really a fantastic way, because, for example, your professor, Dr. Elizabeth Ford Freeman, that's how we reconnected, because she read an article about the work that she was doing, and her service learning project involved going to Brazil, but she's amazing service learning faculty member. So, there's a lot of ways that once you find the right faculty member, they can really get you.
I think that's really key, Bonnie, because
yeah.
you can't just, I think if you call a college and you're asking for volunteers, students are really reluctant to volunteer because they're working full-time and they're going to school full-time. Where do you fit it in?
Yeah.
And so with this class, it was a requirement for us to volunteer. So that's kind of maybe the difference there. It's
Yeah.
more of a class that is a service learning than to just ask for volunteers.
And knowing that it was hard for me to figure out exactly what organizations to go to. So, and I know that there's other faculty members as well who feel that way. Like, well, I don't know which organization. I don't know enough about the organization. So, if you could maybe use that service learning buzzword, that might help too. Because in order to get this thing called the Carnegie classification, universities have to have service learning classes, and so they're really looking to try to ensure that they do that. So maybe having some of the right buzzwords, maybe I can afterwards tell you about some of the different universities that I know are involved with Florida Campus Compact, and I might be able to figure out a faculty member who's already doing service learning who would be interested in helping. Because I guess you're from all parts of Florida, so you couldn't just go to us at USF Sarasota, Manatee.
I was just going to say that sometimes in lieu of dissertation,
Yeah.
students have to do a project.
Right, yes.
or part of your thesis or dissertation,
Yes.
oftentimes depending on the discipline that you're going through, like mine's more interdisciplinary. So I'm looking at Latin American and Caribbean studies as my master's program, but within that I have a focus in sociology. So that's what created the need for me to go out in the community and start doing these workshops and conversations and learning that Waimama is different than Plant City, even though we're looking at Hispanics. And I think you can say that about any race or ethnicity, right? And so I think that it's very important to start tapping into that. So like you make one connection and you make the other. So it's about the dialogue.
Yeah. Yes.
One more thing, you can check with your city or county government, because like with Markella, I saw her earlier and I'm like, I know her. But I'm the neighborhood liaison for Hillsborough County. So when she talks Waimama and Plant City, that's my neighborhood. So I've been there, I've worked with Hispanic Services and we're there all the time. So call the city of Lakeland.
Oh, no, we are very well connected, ma'am, don't get me wrong. This is just a little nugget we were getting about the colleges.
Yeah, but I mean, like with us,
We
with
are
Hillsborough
all
County,
around.
we work very closely with USF to make sure that their students have that outreach,
Yes.
because we personally use them.
And I don't want to
We have
minimize at
used
all
them.
what you're saying because
Yes.
my office was the Office of Community Engagement and Partnerships, and it still was a struggle to get enough faculty who wanted to do service learning.
Exactly.
So it is hard to do that.
Yes,
So
and
I agree with you
ways.
that that's definitely an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we're done, but feel free to come up and ask us any questions, and perhaps I can find you some people who do service learning in your area.
And please leave your evaluations for the course research as well. Florida kids.
Thank you.
Like contact you or.
Yes.
Yeah.
I should have put that up there.
Hold your presentation, I want it.